Hello and welcome to another HanDrinksSolo wine info video, and today we are talking about the Blacksmith's Innervision Pinotage 2020. And I want to achieve three things with this video. First, I want to talk a little bit about winemaker Tremayne Smith. Second, I want to take a look at this delightfully unusual little Pinotage and talk about what it tastes and smells like in the glass. And finally, if you've got the stones for it, I'm going to take a little journey into the chemistry of carbonic maceration. Blacksmith Wines is the side project of winemaker Tremayne Smith. Now, at a glance, Tremayne Smith may look like the obvious shoe-in for the position of manager should Hell's Angels ever launch an organic artisanal farming operation. By training, Tremayne is both a qualified chef and a winemaker, and to make things even more interesting, Tremayne has spent time training as a winemaker under two vastly different South African winemaking legends. He started out in the rocky, dry region of Mulgas, working at Sijnn Wines under David de Trafford, before then moving on to the Swartland to work under Andrea Mullineux's supervision at Leeuwpan and Mullineux Wines. Refreshingly, and perhaps this is what makes his personal journey most impressive, when he finally launched out on his own, he began making wines that were completely different to anything that either of his previous two mentors would have produced. Of course, his full-time job is still winemaker at Fable, but this range of Blacksmith wines is fascinating and definitely worth a closer look. Now, as a forewarning, it is worth mentioning that when you have a winemaker who gets his tattoo artist to design all the labels for his wine range, you can rest assured that there are probably going to be one or two of your little wine prejudices and preconceptions that are going to be knocked about. Now, the preconception bashing begins as soon as you open the bottle. It may look like a conventional glass of Pinotage, but when you give it a smell, especially immediately after opening the bottle, there's a cloud of incredibly moody aromas that shift from biltong shavings to green olive tapenade to smoky flint. It really all is quite serious. Some of this is really Pinotage's Edward Hyde side, just peeping out from above Dr. Jekyll. But the rest of it is mostly just a bit of reduction and will blow off in time. And what's left beneath it really is all Disneyland. As the more savory aromas recede with time in the glass, you get an absolute smorgasbord of boiled blackberry candy, like the black sparkles that you used to hoard as a child. And then there's this amazing kind of raspberry sherbet stuff, like when you used to have the little lollipop that you dip into the small little packet. And for those of you who might be getting upset at all the references to refined sugar, rest assured there are also some amazingly sweet, fresh fruit elements like strawberries and pomegranates. And when we take a sip, well, those savory elements that took a back seat when the fruit and candy aromas came to the fore have now been locked in the trunk. They are nowhere to be seen because the palate is just a clean, clear, lifted lattice of candy and fruit notes. The texture is beautifully silky. Tannins are so fine, almost imperceptible, but there's just enough evolution to move from fresh, silky fruit and candy through to very gently tugging grippy tannins on the tail end. And for those of you who don't ever like anything to be too easy, you'll be pleased to note that there is an ever so subtle herbal rocket leaf pepper note right at the back just to spice things up. Now, if all you wanted was a bit of background and some flavor notes, then that's all I have for you. But if you want to know how on earth did it get to be this way, then stick around as I go into the chemistry of a process called carbonic maceration. Because surely you had to ask the question, if this is a 100% Pinotage with no fancy weird yeasts added, how on earth are we getting aromas and flavors of boiled blackberry candy and cherry sherbet with cherry fizz pop sucker in there and mixed in with raspberries and pomegranates and strawberries? How on earth is that being achieved from Pinotage and native yeast?
Doesn't make any sense.
What dark voodoo is this? And as it turns out, it's less voodoo and more carbonic maceration. Now, carbonic maceration is a process where you take bunches of grapes and you lay them very gently into stainless steel tanks. Now, you can't pack those grapes too high because if you do, the grapes all at the bottom will be crushed by the weight of the rest and the juice will leak out. And if the juice leaks out of the grapes, then the gig is up, Sonny Jim. Because carbonic maceration can only take place when berries are still intact. Now, we take that tank that has grapes in it and we fill it with carbon dioxide and we seal the tank completely. Then we wait. During that time, the grapes begin to absorb carbon dioxide, and all the carbon dioxide within the flesh of the grape causes it to trigger over into what is called anaerobic fermentation. Now, there's no yeast involved, so I guess It is a little bit like voodoo. What happens is that inside the berry, without any yeast present, malic acid and sugar begin to interact to form alcohol and carbon dioxide as a byproduct. But along with that come a whole range of these crazy, wild, candy-like confection, candy floss, and bubblegum aromas, which are unlike anything you might otherwise have tasted in a pinotage. Then the real magic begins, because as alcohol forms in these grapes as a result of malic acid and sugar, the alcohol acts as a solvent and begins to dissolve the color in the skins of the grapes. But here's the kicker! Tannins are on the outer layer of the skins, whereas the color molecules are on the inner layer. So the alcohol has access to the color to dissolve it, but won't extract the tannins, which is how you can get a vibrant colored wine that has such soft, gentle tannins. Of course, then what sometimes happens is the pressure on the gas inside the berry causes the berry to burst, or the berries are mechanically crushed, the juice runs out, and conventional fermentation can ensue, at which point tannins can be dissolved. But that little head start that the color gets over tannins means you can produce an incredibly vibrant, fruity, aromatic, explosive wine that is silky, lithe, and fresh, and exhibits a range of flavor notes and aromas that are from another dimension. Incidentally, it should be noted that carbonic maceration can be done with Syrah, or Gamay, or Pinot Noir, and a whole bunch of other grapes. But in South Africa, it's particularly interesting to taste our very own Pinotage vinified in this way. So that's all we have time for today. But if you enjoyed the video, then why not subscribe to the HanDrinksSolo YouTube channel, where we publish at least 6 videos every month talking about unusual cultivars, winemaking science, viticulture, wine history, and some of the rising stars coming out of the dynamic South African wine mints.